Welcome to Cinemaphile, where we showcase the best in independent documentary and foreign filmmakers and talk to them about their work. I'm your host, Mike Kaspar. You can listen to other interviews by going to Cinemaphile with Mike Kaspar at Spotify. From the Oscar-winning team behind 20 Days in Mariupol comes 2,000 Meters to Andriivka, documents the toll of the Russia-Ukrainian war from the personal and devastating vantage point of the soldiers involved. Following his historic account of the civilian toll in Mariupol, Mstyslav Chernov turns his lens towards Ukrainian soldiers. Who are they? Where are they from? And the impossible decisions that they face in the trenches as they fight for every inch of their land. What an amazing film this is. I'm honored to have with us today the director, producer of 2,000 Meters to Andriivka, Mstyslav Chernov.
Thank you so much for the invitation.
Cannot convey to the audience in strong enough terms what a visceral experience this was. As I said, emotionally, intellectually, physically, to the way you feel when you're watching what's happening in front of you is amazing. And it points out something that I've wondered about for a long time with modern technology. I had an assumption when this war started that this might be the first war that we watch in real time. It hasn't been that way, but this film certainly brings all of that to bear in the making of this film. Let's talk about that, how you became part. What inspired you, or how did this come to pass?
That's very, very true. This war is recorded and brought to the audiences like never other was done before. And considering that the experience of soldiers in the trenches and in the cities where they fight is still very, very similar to the experiences of those who went through the First World War, Second World War, and we are making these references in the film to universality of that experience. What's different here is that the modern technology that is available for us as for filmmakers helps to bring audience not just to observe the soldiers and their experiences, but to be with them in the trench, to feel how they feel and see what they see literally through their eyes. And that is very different. That experience is so much deeper, and the connection of the audience to the soldiers becomes so much deeper because of that. Yeah, that's how we try to expand documentary medium. But the longing to our wish to do that, my wish to do that, of course, comes from a very, very personal place. This is a personal story. Andriivka is a couple hours drive, 1 hour if you drive very, very fast, like you do in a war zone. From my hometown, Kharkiv, those places are the places of my childhood, very, very familiar. The connection to land, my connection to that land, to those villages, and connection of the soldiers to that land and to those villages is personal. So when I was premiering 20 Days in Mariupol in LA and in San Francisco and in New York in 2020, summer 2023, when we were screening for American audiences. Right after that, I was flying back to Europe, crossing the border to Ukraine, taking a train, taking a car, and getting into the trench. So that transition was happening over 24 hours. And those two worlds were so, so different. And I wanted to express that too, how different those worlds are, but how actually close they are to each other. And that's why this film is all about the distances.
2,000 meters to Andriivka. It's something that you can wrap your mind around in terms of we can understand that as a distance, and also it grounds us in the reality of, in some ways, that's not very far, for certainly. What is that in miles?
That's approximately 1 mile.
Mhm.
And the entire film is very, very contained with its perspective. We live through the battle of Andriivka. We live through the battle to liberate the small village. And the only way to get there is through this tiny strip of forest, which is 1 mile long. So the entire film is happening inside that little forest of 1 mile long. And it's a good comparison. It's probably one big cinema theater wide, and that's what I always tell the audiences when they come to cinema. Look at this. Look at the theater. That's how wide that forest was, and the audience always gasps and realizes how little it is. But it took the brigade almost 3 months to fight through that 1 mile of heavily fortified forest, squeezed between two minefields to reach this little village of Andriivka. And I think in that battle, we see a symbol of the of how hard it is to fight for that land, how much pain and blood and resilience it takes to carry the symbol of victory, which is so necessary for Ukrainian nation right now.
There is something to watching these soldiers carry out their responsibilities, carry out their orders in this film, that from someone on the outside as a civilian, watching them operate under the most dire, incredibly fraught and dangerous conditions. And I use this word in quotations, and this is admirable on many levels. Their normalcy, the ability to normalize their everyday actions in the face of this daunting and perilous operation is remarkable. I think for me, one of the major takeaways is that the ability to actually be able to, I'll say, be normal, which is not the right way to put it, but I think you know what I'm trying to get to here.
Yeah, yeah. To have a sense of normality amidst absolute destruction, it
Yes.
is it is a sign of resilience and a sign of courage, I think. And that's what I see. That's what it keeps inspiring me every day. And but when you get closer to soldiers, when you step in that little forest, when you hear the buzzing of the drones above your head, when you think that every single moment you can die, when you have this only one direction and that direction is forward and you walk with them, you see and realize that they are, we used to talk about them as soldiers, but they are civilians. They are civilians that had their home invaded, that took arms to protect their home. They're all volunteers. And then you see that, yeah, they are just like everyone else. And the conversations we are having when we are hiding from the artillery in a trench is not about some big ideas or about abstract politics. It's about wives, it's about children, it's about cigarettes and how we studied in the rival universities. Those are conversations that most dear to our hearts because they're human, those things that make us human. And being able to show that through film, being able to show how the humanity is preserved even in the most impossible conditions, is what I tried to do in this film.
Having made the film 20 Days in Mariupol, I mean, how did that prepare you for making this film?
Well, unfortunately, nothing can prepare you for war. Nothing can prepare you for tragedy, and living through one tragedy not at all makes other tragedies that are coming easier to live through. So probably it's a question of survival, and I've been through 6, 7 wars. By now, I've been through, Syria, Afghanistan, Iraq, Nagorno Karabakh, Gaza. Libya and Ukraine, of course, and all those experiences helping to survive, and surviving is the key to making a film like this. So they help to survive. They help to know how to care about the people who you're working with, about your friends, about your colleagues. That's what you're thinking about when you are there, how to make sure that they're safe. We worked together with Alex Babenko, my second camera, as and co-producer on the film, and I think I worried for his life more than I was worried for mine when we were doing it. And I'm sure that's the case for him. He worried about my life more than he was worried about his. And that would prepares you. The feeling of community, the feeling of connection to people who are right next to you, those are the key traits. Those are the key moments that keep you alive and prepare you for the worst.
And it sounds very much like you're describing the interaction, the relationship between the soldiers in the field that you're describing, your relationship with Alex in this regard. Is that a fair way to put it?
Yeah, it is.
If I
It
may
is
add.
fair to put it. Of course, of course. And these connections, these connections when you are, and I'm sure these connections would have been way better to maintain and to build somewhere outside of the war. I would very much like to become friends with each one of these guys, and somewhere in a peaceful city, somewhere at a concert, or over a drink, and not in a trench under the attack of drones that are dropping bombs on you, not under artillery shelling or bullets flying by. But when you are in that trench, when you are in that foxhole, and then there is a man next to you, you become friends. You connect forever. And it is makes me so sad, but it's so important that these men who we met in that forest, in that little forest, a lot of them are not no longer alive. They have died later in other battles for another forests and another villages. And then when we were editing the film, when we already finished shooting and we were editing the film, and all this news were coming to us, of course you want to do everything possible to to keep the memory of these people alive.
Remind our listeners, we're speaking with Mstyslav Chernov. He is the director of the film 2000 Meters to Andriivka. And it is an amazing film. It's out on August 1st, so be looking for it. It'll be at the Lemley Monica Film Center here in Los Angeles. Urge you to seek this film out no matter when and where you can. And are you in town, by the way? Are you in Los Angeles for the opening?
Yes, I am. Yes, I am, and it feels really good to be back after 2 years. And last time we were when we were rolling out and premiering 20 Days in Mariupol. It was such a strong experience to especially it was at the same time with Oppenheimer and the Barbie and other amazing films, and 20 Days in Mariupol was playing along with those films. And it was an honor, and it was also an interesting experience how audiences just came to cinemas and experienced such different films. And at the same time, I was shooting 2000 meters to Andriivka. So I was going back and forth. So that feels like a continuity of experience, continuity of conversation with the audiences. And many of the people who came to screenings of 2000 meters to Andriivka in LA told me they've been 2 years ago, they've been in the same theaters, but watching 20 Days in Mariupol.
This film is about something specific, but it begs so many questions about the bigger picture. And one of the things that I'm struck by over these many years, living long enough to have seen so many wars that seem completely pointless. And I asked this of Edward Berger, who did the remake of All Quiet on the Western Front. And
One of our inspirations, by the way. Yeah.
yeah, terrific film. I don't know how true this is, but I haven't heard a good answer to rebut this, which is almost every war that I can think of is based on a lie. It's the premise of the conflict is based on a lie. And in some ways, I take some encouragement from that, as crazy as that sounds, in that it's refutable. And maybe that's a way forward to essentially ensure that these things don't continue to happen in the human experience. I doubt that we'll ever not fight wars, but I also would like to think that we can knock down the rationale for them almost without exception.
That is a very deep and right thought. And at the same time, it makes me a bit worried too, because I feel that with the world we live in right now,
Yeah,
where we need to make a lot of efforts to find truth uh, in the chaos of lies and misinformation and generated content. So the amount of lies around us is growing
I agree.
exponentially.
I agree.
And if wars are built on lies, if the invasions are built on lies, because it was Russian invasion in Ukraine was built on lies. That's how they convinced their people to go and invade the neighboring country. If that's the case, then it will be much easier for countries that want to do the same thing. They want to invade their neighbor. They want to take the land of their neighbor and kill uh, people. It will be much easier for them to do so because now it's so easy to create lies and it's so much harder to defend truth. That is my fear. I think a lot, and again, I've been through different wars, and I think a lot about how horrible and unjustifiable the war is, and that it shouldn't exist. And feeling of pointlessness of it is always there, and
Yeah.
it's of course in my film too. It wouldn't be a right thing to do in any way to glorify. I am what I'm trying to do is against war and to show how terrible it is. At the same time, when it amounts to again a simple ideas that are behind motivations of men in that are fighting that we are showing in a film, I think it all goes to a scene where it's called the 1,000 meters battle, but
Hmm.
there are several battles, and one of them 1,000 meters, and one of the soldiers is shooting, and there's a close combat with the Russian soldiers and the Ukrainian soldiers shouting, "Why did you come here? Why did you come and destroy my home?" And you see why they are there. You see why they are fighting. In another scene by the end of the film, another soldier asks the Russian prisoner of war that they saved, he asks, "Why are you here? I'm 19 years old. Do you think I was dreaming to fight with you guys when I'm 19? You think this is what I want? But I'm here, right?" And again, he knows why he's there. And then he asks Russian soldier, "Why are you here?" And the response he gets is, "I don't know." And it's very clear to me that this war, as pointless as it is for Ukrainians, is fight for survival,
Yeah.
fight for their home. For the Russians that came there, it is fight to expand their empire.
I mean, everything you said, I completely agree with. I can't think of I cannot think, or I don't know of a war that the premise of the war, the stated premise, the battle between the armies, wasn't based on something that wasn't true. So I don't know. I said I'd like to think that at some point in the progression of human consciousness and experience, that we figure out that that isn't a good idea, that this isn't the way forward. And so I haven't. You started out as a journalist, and you have become an accomplished filmmaker. When you were a journalist, at what point in your journey did you think that this form of storytelling, this form of conveying what you wanted to convey, was the best place, the best way forward for you?
Well, for each story, there is a right way to tell it. Some stories require literature. Some stories require journalism. Some stories require investigations. Some require documentary cinema form and medium. So I think we just have to be aware that we make a choice according to what we're trying to tell. In recent years, I see journalism being challenged more and more, and I see how impact of journalism, at least if we speak about the immediate impact of journalism, is reducing due to constant attacks on truth and due to radicalization of opinions of people around the world. And I feel that documentary cinema, as a medium that appeals to human emotion
Yeah.
on a very deep level, is able now to carry that function of preserving truth, but at the same time doing it in a way that audiences will emotionally connect with. Because we are storytellers. Like, humanity is ultimately a bunch of storytellers. That's how we
Yeah.
learn from each other. We learn by telling each other stories. That's how I learned life from my grandmother and my father. They were telling me stories about their life. We doubt facts, but we don't doubt our emotions.
And this film, by the way, is visceral in its emotional pull. There are so many elements in it. Not only do we see the actual battle between these two armies, these two groups of men. I don't know how many people were ever actually engaged in this battle for
I would
Andriivka.
say a hundred people from each side.
Okay, so we see that, but also what really lands in this film is the sound. There's an immersive quality to this film that is so compelling and so well done. Getting to know the individual soldiers, getting to see the leadership, the people who are leading them into battle. And as you said, and he's at the very beginning of the film, the quote from Hemingway on how we've evolved in terms of our ability to kill people, the efficiency with which we can do that now, but we have not evolved in another very important realm. It's just to see the carnage that we lay bare in this film. It's an amazing experience. I just want to convey to the audience. This is really a truly one of the things I mentioned at the beginning of our conversation was I was wondering when we would see a war in real time. As I said, we are seeing bits and pieces of this war in real time, but it's so powerful. My congratulations to you on what you've done here.
Thank you. Thank you.
Again, the film is called 2000 Meters to Andriivka, and we have been talking with the director, producer, cinematographer, writer, many different hats worn by our guest today, Mstyslav Chernov. Thank you so very much.
It's an honor. Thank you.
You have been listening to Cinemaphile. I'm your host, Mike Kaspar, and you can listen to previous interviews as well as special programming, or you can subscribe by going to Cinemaphile, that's File, with Mike Kaspar, at Spotify. Until next time, thank you for listening.